Alright, welcome back everyone, Zaf here. We're 6 hours into testing BOT, that being the battlefield time. The artifact sets were the trickiest part of this run because it's very important what you run on your main DPS, in this case being Emma, so I'll tell you exactly what to use, what'll make this run so easy, that way you get the rank #1 spot, making sure you get that beautiful trophy. Now, just as a reminder, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. We do tons of guides like this one right here. We're almost at the 100,000 mark, so let's reach that goal. We're so close. We are the #1 Soul Loving Rise community for a reason. And speaking of rank #1, make sure you support us on Netmarble Supporter Program. It's free. You get free codes by doing so. Once you support, check back in a few hours. Under your My page right here, you will get a code in the top right. You scroll down to receive benefits. You'll get 2 codes so far. In a week, we'll get 1 more code. In 2 weeks, 2 codes. So just stay tuned, support, don't think, and you will get some free rewards. And lastly, congrats to Doink Master from the first comment to our last video. Here is your shoutout, and of course, enjoy your exclusive Discord role. And if you haven't, make sure to join the Discord server as well. We have the largest community there, so you're missing out if you haven't joined yet. Now let's start things off your hunter choices, and also what artifacts work best on them. Super important. I found that swapping artifacts around netted the most notable difference. So let me show you exactly what I ran on Emma, Yuso, Hyun, and Min. One set I don't recommend you use at all is the Greed set, and yes, that's right, my server is very weak. I'm not sure why. There are a few pay-to-win players here, but they just don't try, which is good for me. I don't want to have too much competition, but going to our hunters, you can see on Emma, I'm using a, bit of a different loadout. There are a lot of options, trust me. Through our testing, I basically tried out every single artifact set, and this right here worked the best. I do not recommend you use a Greed set. Greed is just not correct for this run in my opinion, especially when it comes to the mob clear. Greed just doesn't make sense. You're using Emma a lot for this run, but if you don't have Emma, which is fine, you can use other hunters. In this case, there's only really one other hunter that comes to mind, literally only one. Choi, if you have him, can kill the mobs, but if you don't have him as well, you can just use Yuso Hyun. Though I can tell you right now for Emma, this run becomes a bit slower, but not impossible. It's definitely doable. So you do need 2 hunters at least for this to get an easy clear. Either Emma or Yuso Hyun, both work. And these are the sets I chose on them. So if Emma, Curse worked the best, Greed is totally trash in my opinion, doesn't work out well. If you're using her for clears, it's just not the correct set. If you're using her for support, I guess that's fine. With the break on the last boss, the damage can stack for your next best hunter to come in, deal DPS, but this is what worked best for me. You do have 2 other options though, it's up to you. Though I found when using the Iridescent set, this was the best because the cooldown reduction made things a lot faster. The CDRs do help out a lot, instead of using a set like Obsidian, which does give you a bit more of an increase in damage out by 7%, but the cooldown reduction really makes a difference here. So that's why I recommend running this set, and also you have to remember, with this set here, the mana restriction is kind of hard to keep track of if you're not a super pro, and with Emma you are losing mana quite fast, so this set is ideal. And for this set here, you do have 2 options. You can just run Curse. 4-set Curse is so good, and as a reminder, your substats do not matter, your enhancements don't matter, it's only the set effects. Please remember, that's why I'm using blank artifacts here, does not impact the run, just so you know. Your advancements do matter though, of course, both on your hunter and their weapons for anyone new, and of course your advancements here as well, and any skill levels. So you do want your Q to be leveled up just a bit, that being this skill here, Burn Up. It will help the run a lot. Obviously if mine was level 10, if this skill was level 10 as well, my run would be way faster, but I just didn't want to invest too much just for BOT. My run speed was just fine. And if you don't have these leveled up, I can show you a trick to get more damage in, don't worry. I'll show that in just a moment here. But going back to Emma artifact sets, Curse is just so good. 20% damage out bonus and 0.1% every second really does add up, trust me on that. But you can use one other set right here. You can go 2-set Curse and also 2-set 1-hit kill. That's because Emma's ulti deals so much damage on this run, I'll show you. So this can be very helpful in the 2-set effect. Ultimate damage increased by 25%, but in all honesty, losing the 10% bonus here doesn't really make it worth it in my opinion. So just go full Curse, it makes the run way more streamlined, with the Iridescent set as well. And when it comes to Min, your support unit, I do recommend running all blessing on him, but if you don't have Min, you can use someone like Malin. She works just fine as well, providing some necessary bonuses. You can, of course, use Libora too. Libora provides a lot of damage as well, that being damage bonuses to your team. And lastly, let me check who else would work here. Choi, of course, if you have his weapon as well. Very, very useful. And lastly, I'm just looking who else would be a good slot for this. Honestly, no one else really comes to mind from the list here. You do want to just use general supports or your fire units. I know a lot of people have, let's say, Cha advanced up, but if you use Cha, she won't really deal too much damage for this run. You have to remember, when it comes to the battlefield time, let me show you. It is a bit different now than before. If you have missed it, of course, if you look here, if we hop in, you can see when we take a look at the recommended element, it's 200% instead of 150%, meaning we're getting more damage in when we match the correct unit, so very important here. And while I'm here, let me tell you what shadows I use. I do prefer the Big Rock because we use so many basic skills, it makes the run so much better in my opinion. You can use Igris for more crit if you don't have the Big Rock, so it's up to you, but in my opinion, getting the 10% for me in this case, basic skill damage increase is insane. You do have other options, of course, like I mentioned, Igris, more crit rate, means more damage. We don't have maximum crit, so it's perfect. And if you don't have him, I guess you can use someone like Iron, in this case. Getting more HP means more damage on Emma, but again, everyone should have Igris, of course, so you should just use Igris. If you don't have Big Rock, if you have Big Rock, use him. This is such a big advantage. But going back to our Hunter page, when it comes to your support unit, just run Blessing on them, super important, and make sure you start out with that Hunter. That way, when you instantly swap out, you apply the Blessing set effect, that being a 20% damage dealt increase, super important, especially for the first few phases. You want that damage in, otherwise you're going to have a tough time. So in this case, you can use Min, you can use Malin, you can use Choi, you can use Libora. These are all the best options in my opinion for making the run fairly streamlined. Again, their passives make this run way easier. And for Yuso Hyun, or I guess in this case for using Choi for more DPS, you go with the Curse set and Obsidian. This provides the highest damage result because you're not likely going to tag them in for too long, so the mana requirement isn't necessary. You'll always be above 40% because we just use Yuso Hyun for debuffs, for some quick minor damage for the break, you'll see. So the 4-set Curse giving 20% also, Obsidian giving us 25% is a 45% boost, which is huge, so good. That's why I use it. It also made the first and second phase much easier, getting damage in to quickly burst the enemies. And if you look at Yuso Hyun's passives, let me show you. This is why we use her. This right here, Magic Reaction, increases fire damage taken by 1%, stacking up to 20 times, so 20% bonus fire damage, that's huge. That's why I use it, making sure Emma does get a buff, because she's basically clearing this whole map. She's vital for this BOT. So Yuso Hyun is literally the perfect buffer for her. And when it comes to Min, you're always making sure you use its Conviction of Light. This 5% damage taking bonus does help out a lot, so make sure you use it on the first phase, on the last phase for the boss battle. Super important. And also his ultimate makes the run so much easier. 12% damage dealt and also crit rate bonus. So OP, including the crit damage bonus here as well. Overall, Min is just such good support on top of the bonuses he provides through his passives. His A1 bonus, literally juicing up Emma. Without Min, honestly, we could not do this too easily. And the A5 bonus, don't get me started. But one thing I do want to get started on is, you have to remember, for Min's bonus right here, it's provided to the user on the team with the highest total power. So you have to make sure when you go to your team, let me go to the game mode, battlefield time. You can see here I made sure that my Emma had the most power. And also let me actually go back. I realized I'm not first place here. Let me take my award. Beautiful. That way I take my rightful spot as rank number 1. Can't slack with those rewards, of course. But going back here, as I was saying, I made sure Emma has the highest power. That way, Min's ultimate gets applied to her. I made this mistake way back when on Igris when it was Cha's team. Cha didn't have the highest power, so Min's ultimate did not apply to her, and that was a huge letdown in damage. So I made sure now to always check when Min's on my team to make sure the user I want to have the most ultimate damage will get Min's A5 bonus applied to them. That way we're good to go for the battle. Now, if you don't have Emma's weapon to A10, there are a few alternatives I would say. I would just recommend using the Book Honor for the HP bonus, and also you get the Power Gauge bonus and the Attack Defense HP bonus at 10% if you have it to 810. But you can also try, give it a shot. You can use a Steel Bow, but I'm pretty sure it won't provide that much of a benefit. You can try it. The crit damage bonus is quite nice. I haven't tested out which one is better, so just give it a try between the Grimoire here and also Steel Bow. You can use the rare variants as well, so the bow here, same as the Steel Bow, just less effects. If you have 2, 8, 10, it is better than using the bow, let's say A3 for example. Same with this book here, the rare book, if I can pull it up. This one here, same thing, but you can also use this here, but it has attack scaling, so preferable use it on Hunter for attack scaling, but still, it is useful nonetheless. The elemental weakness damage bonus of 12%, quite OP, so give it a try. Those 3 weapons are your go-tos. It costs nothing to try them out because you have to remember, you're not leveling up the weapon, you're just advancing it up. So advance yours up, see what works best, that way you get the best result possible. So that should be everything covered. Let's go ahead and cover the match. I'll do a step-by-step playback. That way you know exactly what to do. The run is fairly simple, it's very standard, nothing too tricky about it. You just have to get your timings right. That way you get the fastest time possible, of course. Okay, let's jump in. 0.5x speed, as you can see with Min. The first thing we do is dash a bit to the left, then dash forward. Then we're going to use his E, this skill right here. We want to make sure this skill lands on every single mob, giving the 5% bonus, and actually deals a decent amount of damage, so if it's level 1 for you, make sure to level it up. It will deal a little bit of damage, it'll help out with the first phase here. Then we immediately swap into Emma, giving the blessing set Min is using, putting it on her, the 20% bonus, and once Emma comes in, we use her Q, and that should, theoretically, clear all the mobs right here. If not, you can auto attack or use her E, but you will need her E for the next phase, so you can just let Min's E and her Q clear the wave here over time, you'll see. So when we do that, we dash, we use his E, we make sure it hits all 3 mobs. If it doesn't, just reset your run. This only took us 2 seconds to do, so you can spam these runs until you get it right. He has to stand around right here to get all 3 mobs in, so make sure you stand correctly. Then when we have Emma in, what I do is I try to dash a bit forward or walk a bit forward, and then I use her Q. That's because her Q, the flame, can hit the next phase. It is a very large AoE skill, you'll see here. So once I use it, the flames expand out all the way back there. So now you're walking here, waiting for the mobs to spawn. Once they do, you want to wait just a little bit for the back one to drop. There it is, it dropped. Then use Emma's E, this skill here. It should hit both mobs. Once it does that, you want to manually swap to Yusohyun, and the moment you swap into her, use her Q. That way you can hit the mobs and clear them. Boom, bam. The ticks will clear off that mob there, and then, with Yusohyun, we want to attack in a straight line. You can see what I'm doing here with the targeting move right here. I'm aiming on that mob, so I make sure I hit the back mob and the front one here. Otherwise, you're bound to miss, which can be super annoying. So what I do is I use her E, this skill here, and then her auto attack, which gets buffed up by her E. Very simple, it should clear both mobs there. If not, just keep autoing using your skills, etc. And once I clear that phase, I dash forward twice or once, depending on how fast you can run, and then I use her E, getting the stacks off on her passive on the enemy, and then I immediately swap into Emma, using her QTE, and then using her core attack. That should clear the mob. If not, no worries, use her E as well. That'll clear it for sure. You will have her core attack up because her Q makes her core attack come up, super important. So as we do this, we use her E, swap into Emma, use her QT, and then boom bam, core attack should be cleared. And once the enemy dies here, you can see I use Min immediately because the power gauge bonus this QT provides is huge. It's a 50% buff. It helps with getting all your ultimates up. That's how we can use Emma's ulti right away, making sure we deal tons of damage, of course. So you see here in a second, boom, QT goes off during the animation of the next phase. Perfect timing, make sure you use it. I do forget sometimes myself, you'll get used to it, but that's the best way to do it. Now, with Min spawned in, what you want to do is you can use his Q. That way, it does charge up your ultimate. Once you use his Q, dash out of it. Though in the beginning, if you feel it's easier, you can use his Q instead. The moment he spawns in, use his Q, and then dash forward using your E. This is for the first phase, not this phase, but I do prefer using the Q on this phase. For the boss battle, makes it a bit easier in my opinion. So you see here, I'll use it, and then boom, I'll dash out of it, then use my E, get the damage off. But I should mention, when you use Min's E, you do want to immediately swap into Emma. That's what you always want to do in BOT if you want the maximum time possible. You have to make sure when using hunter skills with very long animations like this skill right here that you swap to the next hunter to maximize your damage. Super important. But continuing on, we're going to start using her skills. We use her Q, getting her core attack up. This results in the most damage possible because then her Q goes back on cooldown. When we use her core attack, we can use her Q again, get her core attack back up. That results in the most damage. So now we're going to use her E, use her core attack, auto attack a few times, and then her Q should be back up. You'll see in just a moment here. I'm going to wait for her Q and use it, boom. And up to you. You can use her core attack and then swap into Min, or use her E. I found using her core attack and then swapping is the best. Let me see if that's what I do on this run here. So we're going to core attack and then swap into Min. Perfect. Again, saving time on the animations. I use his core attack, not necessary there. You use your ultimate next, or use his E, and then ultimate, up to you. Or use his ultimate, then E, then swap until you so Hyun. I use her QT, just to make sure I get these stacks off here. And then I use my shadows. I found using your shadows early is always better. They get a lot of damage off and also their passives go off. So Serbi, the 5% damage bonus, and Iron, the 12% defense reduction, very, very strong. And here what I do is use her Q. It gives her more damage, of course. It's a pretty substantial bonus to her attack. And then what I do is I use her E, and then I jump right out of it using a dodge. So use her E, dodge out of it, use her auto attack. That'll be your core attack. That'll give us some bonus stacks here. You'll see here, we have 19, 20 stacks now. Beautiful. And then QT into Emma, getting more break off. Use her E, use her Q, and then your core attack if you can. You might break early, but that's fine. So here we did break the target a bit early, but that's okay. Use your core attack, and then use your E or your Q. Doesn't really matter for DPS. Use your core attack next, and then use your E, and then ultimate. You have enough time for when the target jumps out of their break to use your ultimate, and boom. Well, if you have a lot of advancements, if you have weapon to A5, you will defeat the target. If not, you're stuck with that annoying shield. It's totally okay. At that point, just deal more damage. The run is pretty standard after that. Just swap into your hunters, deal as much damage as possible. But unfortunately for this run, there are not too many alternatives. Though you can use Malin, of course, get rid of the shield. That's why she's so good for this run. Even if you don't have the main supports like Min, she can make this run so much easier by removing the Guardian's shield. So make sure you use the right lineup for your setup. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. So if you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like. If you enjoy guides like this, and do subscribe, of course, so we hit 100,000 subs. We are so close, I can taste it. Let's do it together, of course. And do support us on that Marvel Supporter Program. It's free. You get free codes sent to your My Page here a few hours after supporting. So just support, don't think, and you will get some codes. On that note, this was your Code King Zaf signing out.